The transport ship landed on Kepler 4-4 to be with a loud roar of engines. Dust flew everywhere as the metal beast touched down on the landing pad. From the cargo bay, 15-year-old Hannah stepped out into the bright sunlight of her new world. She carried only a small bag and wore clothes that had seen better days, but what made people stare were the scars on her arms. Long, white lines ran from her wrists to her shoulders like claw marks. Some were old and faded, others looked fresh. The Terran Colonial Academy stood before her like a giant metal fortress. Students in neat uniforms walked between buildings, talking and laughing. None of them looked like they had ever slept under stars or hunted for their dinner. Commander Tay waited at the academy entrance. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He looked at Hannah's scars and frowned. "You must be the girl from Umbral Prime," he said. "I am Commander Tay. I run this academy. We received your file, but it was mostly empty. Where are your parents?" Hannah stood straight and looked him in the eyes. "They died when I was small. The Shadow Panthers raised me." Commander Tay blinked. "Shadow Panthers, the great hunters of Umbral Prime. They took me in when I was lost. They taught me to survive." A group of students had gathered nearby to listen. A boy named Minho laughed out loud. "She thinks animals raised her, like in old fairy tales." Girl called Gina whispered to her friend Yuki, "Look at those scars. She probably did that to herself." Dong, another boy, shook his head. "Umbral Prime is a death world. No human could survive alone there, especially not a child." Commander Tay held up his hand for silence. "That's enough. Miss Hannah, you will be assigned quarters and begin classes tomorrow. Dr. Nari will examine your medical records." That night, Hannah sat alone in her small room. Through the window, she could see the academy's practice grounds. Students trained with laser weapons and practiced military drills. Everything was clean and organized and safe. She closed her eyes and remembered different times. She remembered sleeping curled against warm fur that smelled like starlight and shadow. She remembered learning to hunt by watching golden eyes that glowed in the dark. She remembered the deep, rumbling sounds that meant safety and home. The next morning brought her first classes. In combat training, Instructor Juan asked the students to run through the forest that surrounded the academy. "This is a simple exercise," Juan said. "Follow the marked trail. Out. Don't get lost. First one back gets extra rations." The students took off running. Minho and Dong sprinted ahead, trying to show off their speed. Gina and Yuki stayed together, following the bright markers on the trees. Hannah started slowly. But after a few minutes, something felt wrong. She stopped and sniffed the air. Her nose caught a scent that made her skin crawl. Danger. Something bad was coming. She left the marked trail and moved through the trees like liquid shadow. Her feet made no sound on the forest floor. She could smell where each student had passed. She could hear their heartbeats from 50 meters away. The scent of danger grew stronger. Then she saw it. A razorback bear, twice the size of a human, was following the scent trail of the running students. Its metal-like claws scraped against tree bark. Its red eyes fixed on the path ahead where Yuki was running alone. Hannah moved without thinking. She climbed a tree faster than should be possible and dropped down between the bear and Yuki. She made a sound deep in her throat. A growling hiss that came from somewhere ancient and wild. The razorback bear stopped, tilted its massive head, and stared at this small human who dared challenge it. For a long moment, predator faced predator. Then the bear backed away, shook its head, and lumbered off into the deeper forest. YUKS stared at Hannah with wide eyes. "How did you do that?" "Sound you made? It was like a panther," Hannah said quietly. By the time they returned to the academy, word had spread. Students gathered around Hannah, asking questions she couldn't answer in ways they would understand. Dr. Nari, the academy xenobiologist, examined Hannah that afternoon. She was a kind woman, with intelligent eyes, who actually listened when Hannah spoke. "These scars," Dr. Nari said, running gentle fingers over the marks. "They're not from claws. They're too precise, too careful. Almost like adoption marks," Hannah finished. "The pack mothers mark their cubs to show they belong." Dr. Nari looked up sharply. You really believe shadow panthers raised you? I know they did. When my parents died in the crash, I wandered in the forest. For days, I was dying. Then Void found me. Void, the pack leader. He was huge, bigger than any panther should be. His fur was so black it seemed to drink light. His eyes were like stars. Hannah's voice grew soft with memory. He could have killed me with one swipe. Instead, he picked me up by my shirt and carried me to the den. Dr. Nari wrote notes on her tablet. Shadow panthers are solitary hunters. They don't form packs. They certainly don't adopt human children. That's what everyone thinks. Wrong. Hannah stood and walked to the window. They're not just animals. They're something more. Something old and wise and powerful. What makes you think that? Hannah touched her scars. Because they taught me things no animal could know. They showed me how to hunt between shadows. It's how to move so quietly that sound itself forgets you exist. How to smell fear and hope and lies. She turned back to Dr. Nari, and they taught me the most important lesson of all, which was that family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to protect you when the darkness comes. That evening, Hannah sat alone in the dining hall. Other students whispered and pointed, but no one sat with her. She ate her processed food and tried not to think about fresh meat, shared under starlight. Minho approached her table with his friends behind him. Hey, Panther girl, tell us another story, maybe about how you learned to fly, or how you can talk to trees, Dong added, laughing. Hannah looked up at them with eyes that seemed older than her 15 years. You think I'm lying? We think you're crazy, Gina said. Shadow panthers are monsters. They kill everything they see. No human has ever gotten close to one and lived. Then how do you explain what happened today with the razorback bear? Yuki asked quietly. Minho shrugged. Lucky guess. Or maybe she has some wilderness training we don't know about. Hana stood slowly. Even though she was shorter than most of them, something about her made them step back. You'll believe when it's too late, she said. When the real darkness comes, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that the girl with panther scars tried to warn you. She walked away, leaving them confused and somehow frightened. Later, that night, Dr. Nari found Commander Tay in his office. I've reviewed Hannah's medical scans, she said. Her reflexes are 40% faster than normal human baseline. Her sensory perception is enhanced beyond anything I've seen. And her healing rate is remarkable. Commander Tay looked up from his reports. Genetic modifications. No signs of any. This appears to be natural adaptation, or something else entirely. Are you suggesting? Dr. Nari hesitated. Maybe we should listen to her story. Maybe there's more to shadow panthers than our files indicate, Commander Tay laughed. A girl raised by monsters? Come now, Doctor. Let's be realistic. Then how do you explain her abilities? Survival training? Natural talent? Lucky genetics? He turned back to his work. Don't let a child's fantasies cloud your scientific judgment. Dr. Nari left his office, but her doubts remained. That night, she pulled up every file the Terran Defense Force had on Umbral Prime and Shadow Panthers. What she found made her blood run cold. The files were mostly classified. What she could read told a story of failed expeditions and missing research teams. Every attempt to study Shadow Panthers had ended in disaster. The creatures seemed to appear and disappear at will. They showed intelligence that bordered on the impossible. And in the oldest files, she found references to bonded humans and adopted cubs that had been dismissed as the ravings of traumatized survivors. Maybe Hannah wasn't lying after all, Miles. Away in the deep forest surrounding the academy, something moved through the shadows. Something large and silent and patient. It had caught a familiar scent on the wind, a scent it had been tracking across star systems and through the void between worlds. The hunt was almost over. Soon, small cub of distant pack would need her. Family again, and this time the galaxy would listen when she spoke of blood ties to panthers in the dark. 3 months passed at the academy like a slow-moving river. Hannah attended classes, ate meals alone, and ignored the whispers that followed her everywhere. The other students had stopped trying to talk to her after she correctly predicted 3 more dangerous animal encounters in the forest. Each time, she saved someone. Each time, They asked how she knew. Each time, she told them the truth. Each time they found ways not to believe her. Commander Tay called it luck. Dr. Nari called it interesting. Students called it creepy. But everything changed on a cold morning in the 3rd month when Captain Kwan arrived at the academy. He was a battle-hardened officer with scars across his face and worry in his eyes. He gathered all the students and staff in the main hall. "I bring troubling news from the Outer Rim," Captain Kwan began. His voice echoed in the large room. 3 months ago, we lost contact with Umbral Prime. Hana felt the blood drain from her face. She had been trying to send messages home for weeks, but none had been answered. Now she knew why. "At first we thought it was equipment failure, Captain," Kwan continued. "Communication arrays break down. It happens. But when we sent repair ships, they found something else entirely." The wall screen flickered to life, showed images that made several students gasp, where there should have been forests and cities. There was only gray ash and strange crystal formations that grew like twisted trees. "The entire planet appears to have been drained of life," Captain Kwan said. "Every living thing, from the smallest insect to the largest predator, is gone. In their place, we found these crystal structures." Hannah stared at the screen. She could see the places where she had played as a child, now covered in alien crystal. The cave where Void had taught her to hunt was buried under gray stone. Clearing where the pack had sung to the moons was empty and dead. "What could do this?" asked Instructor Wan. "We don't know. But Umbral Prime isn't the only world affected. 7 other Outer Rim planets have gone silent in the past month. Our scout ships report the same thing everywhere. Life drained away. Crystals left behind." A student named Ray raised her hand. "Could it be some kind of disease?" Captain Kwan shook his head. "Diseases don't consume metal and rock. Organic matter, technology, even the minerals. In the ground, it left only these crystal formations." Dr. Nari stood up. "Captain, what about survivors? Surely someone escaped." "That's the strangest part. We found no bodies, no remains at all. Everything just vanished, as if it was consumed completely." Hannah felt something cold and terrible growing in her stomach. She raised her hand. "Yes, Miss Hannah," Captain Kwan said. "The crystals," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do they pulse? Do they glow with their own light?" Captain Kwan looked surprised. "How did you know that?" "'Cause I've seen them before. In dreams. For the past month, I've been having the same nightmare over and over." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at her. "Tell us about these dreams," Dr. Neri said gently. Hannah closed her eyes and tried to find the words. "I see Umbral Prime dying. I feel the life being pulled out of everything I loved. And I see shapes moving through space, hungry shapes that eat light itself." "Just dreams, Commander," Tay said firmly. "Stress from being separated from her home world," Hannah said, opening her eyes. "Not just dreams. I can feel them getting closer. The hungry things. They're not done eating." Captain Kwan studied her face. "What do you think they are?" "I don't know what to call them. The Void warned me about them once. He called them the Devourers. He said they come from the spaces between stars and they're always hungry." Minho laughed. Nervously, "She's talking about her imaginary Panther again." "What?" But Captain Kwan didn't laugh. He leaned forward. "Tell me more about what Voight said." He said the Devourers had come before, long ago. They ate whole worlds, whole star systems. The Shadow Panthers fought them, but many Panther worlds were lost. "And how did the Panthers fight these Devourers?" Dr. Nari asked. Hannah hesitated. The truth sounded impossible even to her. "Them between dimensions. Panthers can step sideways through space into places where normal matter can't follow. It's the only way to hurt something that eats energy itself." Commander Tay stood up. "Enough of this nonsense. We're dealing with a real crisis, not fairy tales about magical panthers." "Then explain this," Captain Kwan said. He touched his communication device, and new images appeared on the screen. These were taken by our fastest scout ship, the one that barely escaped the Kepler-7 system before it went dark. The images showed space itself seeming to bend and twist. Massive shapes moved through the darkness, but they were hard to see clearly. They seemed to exist partly in normal space and partly somewhere else. Our sensors couldn't get a clear reading, Captain Kwan said. It was like they were phasing in and out of our reality. Hannah felt her heart racing. That's exactly what Void described. They live between dimensions. They can step into our space to feed, then step back where our weapons can't reach them, assuming these creatures exist. Dr. Nari said carefully. How would we fight them? We can't, Hannah said simply. Humans don't have the ability to phase between dimensions. Only shadow panthers can do that, and now they're all dead. The room fell into uncomfortable silence. Captain Kwan broke it. More. Our deep space sensors have detected massive energy signatures moving toward the core worlds. Based on their speed and direction, they'll reach the mid-rim colonies within 6 months. What are our options? Commander Tay asked. We're organizing a defense fleet. Every available ship is being mobilized. But honestly, if these creatures can drain entire planets, I don't know how effective our weapons will be. After the meeting, Hannah walked alone through the academy halls. Other students avoided her more than usual. Her talk of devourers and dimensional hunting had convinced them she was completely insane. Only Dr. Nari approached her that evening. Hannah, she said, I've been thinking about what you said, about the shadow panthers being able to phase between dimensions. You don't believe me either? Actually, I might. I've been researching quantum physics. There are theories about beings that could exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. It's not impossible. Hannah looked up with hope. Really? Really? But I need to ask you something important. In your dreams, do you see any shadow panthers still alive? Hannah closed her eyes and reached out with senses she didn't fully understand. For a moment, she felt nothing but emptiness and death. Then, faint as a whisper, she felt something familiar. Once she said, I think one survived. How do you know? Because sometimes late at night, I hear him calling my name. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She walked to her window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the devourers were moving closer. Somewhere out there, entire worlds were dying. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, she felt a presence she had known since childhood. Void was alive, and he was searching for her. She pressed her hand against the cold glass and whispered into the night, I'm here. I'm still here. Far away, something heard her, something that had been traveling through the space between spaces. Following a scent that meant home and family and hope, the hunt was almost over. But first, he had to reach her before the hungry things found her world. In the depths of space, crystal ships moved like predators through the dark. They had tasted the life of 8 worlds now, and their hunger only grew stronger. Soon they would find the inner colonies. Soon they would taste human life and human technology and human fear, unless a girl with panther scars, her family from the stars, could stop them. The race against time had begun. The news came on a Tuesday morning that changed everything. Hannah was sitting in her biology class when alarms started screaming throughout the academy. Red lights flashed in the hallways as students looked around in confusion. Commander. Tay's voice echoed from every speaker in the building. All students report to the main hall immediately. This is not a drill. When they gathered, Captain Kwan stood at the front, with his face pale and his hands shaking. Behind him, the wall screen showed a live feed from the Titan Defense Fleet, humanity's strongest military force. What they saw made several students cry out in horror. Massive crystal ships, each one the size of a city, moved through space like hungry wolves. The human fleet fired everything they had. Laser cannons, plasma torpedoes, nuclear missiles, and experimental energy weapons all struck the enemy vessels. Nothing happened. The crystal ships absorbed every attack, growing brighter and larger with each hit. Then they began to feed. Streams of energy flowed from the human ships into the crystal vessels. One by one, the great warships of the Titan fleet went dark and cold. Their metal hulls cracked and crumbled as something vital was drained from them. In less than an hour, humanity's greatest military force was reduced to floating debris. The Midrim colonies are gone, Captain Kwan said in a voice that sounded dead. 12 worlds, 40 billion people. All consumed in a single day. Hannah felt something break inside her chest. She had tried to warn them. She had told them the Devourers were coming, but no one had listened. "What do we do now?" asked Instructor Wan. "We run," Captain Kwan said. "Every ship we have left is evacuating the inner colonies. Earth itself is preparing for siege." "How long do we have?" Dr. Nari asked. "Based on their current speed, the Devourer fleet will reach the core worlds in 3 weeks." The room erupted in panicked voices. Students cried for their families on distant worlds. Teachers tried to maintain order while planning their own escapes, but Hannah stood up and walked toward the exit. "Where are you going?" Commander Tay called after her. "To the forest," she said without turning around. "Someone is coming to find me. Miss Hannah, this is not the time for your fantasies." She stopped at the door and looked back at him. "Commander, your weapons don't work. Your ships are destroyed. Your greatest military minds have no answers. Maybe it's time to try something different." She walked out before he could respond. Hannah made her way to the deepest part of the forest that surrounded the academy. She had been coming here every night for weeks, drawn by a feeling she couldn't explain. Something was calling her from the spaces between the trees. She found a small clearing, where moonlight filtered through the leaves, and sat down on the soft grass. Then she closed her eyes and reached out with senses that had nothing to do with sight or sound. "I know you're close," she whispered to the darkness. "I can feel you searching for me." The forest grew quiet. Even the insects stopped making noise. Then the temperature dropped 10 degrees in a single moment. The air in front of Hannah began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot stone. Reality seemed to bend and twist, and something enormous stepped through. From a place that wasn't quite here, void emerged from between. Dimensions like a nightmare made of starlight and shadow. He was exactly as Hannah remembered, but somehow more. 8 feet of muscle and grace, covered in fur so black it seemed to drink the moonlight. His eyes burned like twin stars, and when he moved, space itself seemed to ripple around him. But he was wounded. Deep gashes ran along his sides, and one of his massive paws left traces of strange blue blood on the ground. "Small cub who walks far from den," he said, and his voice was like distant thunder mixed with purring. The words appeared in Hannah's mind rather than her ears. "Void," she breathed, and ran to him. He lowered his great head, and she buried her face in his fur. He smelled like ozone and starlight and the safety of home. "I thought you were dead," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Death came for the Pacton," Void replied. "The hungry crystal things consumed our world nest, but Void, who hunts between spaces, escaped through the shadow paths. How did you find me?" Small cub calls and dreams. Void follows the scent of family bond across star paths and dimension cracks. Hannah pulled back to look at his wounds. "You're hurt." Devour spawn caught Void in feeding frenzy. Their hunger teeth cut deep, but Void still strong enough to reach. Pack cub, behind them, branches cracked as someone approached. Dr. Nari stepped into the clearing with a scanner in her hands and wonder in her eyes. "Impossible," she whispered, staring at Void. "The energy readings from this creature are off. The charts." Void turned his burning gaze toward the human woman. His lips pulled back to show teeth like white daggers. "Danger," Hannah said quickly, placing her hand on Void's massive neck. "She is friend who listens. She believes pack stories." Void studied Dr. Nari for a long moment, then nodded once. "Dr. Nari," Hannah said. "Meet Void, the pack leader who raised me." Dr. Nari approached slowly, her scanner beeping frantically. "Hannah, the quantum signatures coming from him are incredible. He's existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously." "That's how Shadow Panthers hunt," Hannah explained. "They can step sideways through space, into dimensions where normal matter can't follow." "And the Devourers?" Dr. Nari asked. Void's eyes flared brighter. "Hungry crystal spawn live between real space and shadow space. They feed on life's energy and matter essence. Normal weapons pass through like air through water. But you can hurt them. Shadow panthers hunt devourers for many star cycles. We know their weak paths. But pack is small now. Most pantherkin, consumed by hungry things. Hannah and Void, could you teach humans to fight like you do? Void was quiet for a long time. When he finally answered, his mental voice was heavy with sadness. Impossible for most human kin. IPAC bond requires special genetics, rare spirit connection. Most who try die in the bonding pain, but some could survive it, Hannah asked. Few, very few, and only those chosen by pantherkin as worthy, Dr. Neris. Communication device started beeping urgently. She looked at the screen and her face went white. What is it? Hannah asked. The Devourer fleet just changed course. They're not heading for Earth anymore. They're coming here. Here, to Kepler-4 for 2B? Why? Void stood up, his muscles tensing for battle. They smelled panther scent. They know Void found Pack Cub. They come to finish the hunt. Hannah felt ice in her veins. How long do we have? Dr. Nari checked her readings. Based on their new trajectory, 18 hours. We need to warn the Academy, Hannah said. Warn them of what? Dr. Nari asked. That alien monsters are coming too. Eat our planet? They'll think we're insane. Then we show them, Hannah said. She turned to Void. Can you bring more of your people here? Few pantherkin remain alive? Most survivors are wounded, scattered across shadow paths. But Void can call those who still hunt. Do it. Void raised his massive head and let out a sound that was part roar, part song, and part something that had no name in human language. The call echoed not just through the forest, but through dimensions, carrying across impossible distances to reach other survivors. In the distance, Hannah could hear the Academy's alarms sounding again. Someone had detected Void's dimensional signature. They're coming for us, Dr. Nari said, looking at her communication device. Good, Hannah said. It's time they learned the truth. 20 minutes later, Commander Tay arrived with a full security team. They surrounded the clearing with weapons drawn, but stopped when they saw Void. Even trained soldiers knew a predator when they saw one. Stand down, Miss Hannah, Commander Tay called out. Move away from that creature slowly. His name is Void, Hannah said, not moving, and he's here to save us all. That thing is what brought the Devourers here. No, Hannah said. The Devourers were already coming. Void came here to help us fight them. Commander Tay aimed his weapon at Void. I won't let some alien monster endanger my students. Commander, wait, Dr. Nari said. Listen to what they're offering. I don't negotiate with dangerous aliens. Void looked at the commander with eyes like burning stars. When he spoke, his mental voice reached everyone in the clearing. Small dash human, dash with, dash fear, dash scent. Your weapons cannot touch the hungry crystal spawn. Your ships burn like dry grass and starfire. Your people die while you point useless metal sticks. Commander Tay's face went red. You dare? Void offers pack bond to worthy human kin. Together, panther people and human people can hunt devourers through shadow paths. Part both species become food for hungry things. In the distance, reality began to shimmer as more shadow panthers answered Void's call. One by one, they stepped through dimensional barriers into the clearing. 6 magnificent predators, each one wounded but alive, each one ready to fight. Choose quickly, small. Human with fear scent, Void said. The hungry things come with the next star rise, and they come hungry. Commander Tay looked at his weapons, then at the approaching quantum signatures on Dr. Neri's scanner that meant. The Devourer fleet was getting closer. Finally, he lowered his gun. What do you need from us? The Academy's medical center had never seen anything like this before. Hannah lay on a table surrounded by strange machines, while Voight stood beside her, his massive paw resting gently on her arm. Dr. Nari worked frantically at her computers, trying to understand what was happening. The genetic changes are remarkable, Dr. Nari said, staring at her screens. Hannah's DNA is adapting in real time, creating new pathways for dimensional perception. Commander Tay watched from the corner with deep worry. Is she in pain? Ask her yourself, Dr. Nari said. Hannah opened her eyes, and they glowed faintly in the dim light. It doesn't hurt anymore. It feels like coming home. The bonding process had taken 6 hours. Hannah's body had to change at the deepest level too. Handle the quantum forces that shadow panthers use for dimensional travel. Her nervous system had rewired itself. Her bones had become denser. Her muscles had gained new types of fibers that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. How do you feel? Dr. Nari asked. Hannah sat up slowly. The world looked different now. She could see layers of reality stacked on top of each other like sheets of glass. In some layers, the room was empty. In others, it was filled with swirling energy. I can see between spaces, she said in wonder. I can feel the places where reality is thin. Void made a rumbling sound that might have been approval. Jacob now walks shadow paths with Pantherkin. But bonding is only beginning step. Must learn to hunt before hungry things arrive. Outside the medical center, 100 volunteers waited. They had come from every part of the academy. Students, teachers, security guards, even kitchen staff. All of them knew the risks. Dr. Nari had explained that most of them would die in the bonding process. But they also knew that the Voer fleet would arrive in 12 hours. Commander Tay stood before the volunteers. I won't lie to you. The Shadow Panthers say only a few humans can survive this process. We don't know who will live and who will die. Anyone who wants to leave should go now. Nobody moved. Minho stepped forward. He was the same boy who had mocked Hannah's stories just months ago. Commander, I volunteer to go first. Why? Commander Tay asked. Minho looked ashamed. Because I was wrong about Hannah. Because I didn't listen when she tried to warn us. Because maybe this is my chance to make up for that. A shadow panther moved out of the shadows. She was smaller than Void, but just as magnificent, with silver markings on her black fur. She approached Minho and sniffed him carefully. Nighthorn Silent chooses brave young human, Void translated. She sees warrior spirit beneath fear scent. The bonding began. Minho screamed. His body convulsed as alien genetics merged with human DNA. His bones stretched and reshaped themselves. His nervous system burned and rebuilt itself. 3 times, his heart stopped beating. 3 times, Night brought him back with gentle touches of her paw. After 2 hours, Minho's screaming stopped. He lay still and quiet, barely breathing. He alive? Dr. Nari asked. Night lowered her great head and breathed on Minho's face. His eyes opened and they glowed with the same silver light as his bonded partner. I can see everything, he whispered. Past, present, future, all happening. At the same time? He was the first success. Kai came next, bonded with a panther called Storm. The process nearly killed him, but he survived. Then Bora, who bonded with a fierce hunter named Claw. Each success gave hope. Each failure broke hearts. By dawn, 12 humans had survived the bonding. 12 out of 100. The others had died in agony as their bodies rejected the genetic changes. Dr. Nari worked to save as many as she could. But human biology had limits that couldn't be crossed. Hannah stood with the other survivors in the Academy's main courtyard. They looked like humans, but something had changed in their eyes. They moved differently, as if gravity affected them less. When they spoke, their voices carried harmonics that normal humans couldn't hear. We are packed now, Void said, his mental voice reaching all of them. Human-panther bonds stronger than either species alone. Together, we hunt the hungry things. Do we fight them? Asked Day, one of the new bonded humans. First, must learn to walk shadow paths, Void explained. Devourers exist between dimensions, can only be hurt by those who can follow them there. The training began immediately. Hannah found that bonding with Void had given her abilities she'd never imagined. She could step sideways through reality, appearing in places that were impossible to reach by normal movement. She could sense electromagnetic fields and gravity waves. Most importantly, she could feel the hunger of the approaching devourer fleet, like acid in her mind. The other bonded humans learned quickly. Minho discovered he could phase through solid matter while maintaining his molecular structure. Kai found he could manipulate local space-time, slowing down or speeding up events in small areas. Bora learned to track quantum signatures across vast distances, but their practice time was running out. At noon, Alarms started screaming across the planet. The Devourer fleet had arrived. Captain Kwan's voice echoed from every speaker. All civilians to emergency shelters. All military personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Hannah and the pack stood on the academy's roof watching the sky. Above them, space itself seemed to be tearing. Massive crystal ships phased into normal reality like hungry ghosts becoming solid. They were beautiful and terrible.
Oh.
Each ship was like a living cathedral made of flowing crystal that pulsed with stolen light. They moved through space without engines, bending gravity and time around them. So many, whispered Yuna, one of the bonded humans. More than before, Void agreed. They learned pack hunting from consuming Panther worlds. The first attacks came from the planet's defense platforms. Missiles and energy beams lanced up toward the crystal ships. For a moment, it looked like some shots might connect. Then the Devourers began to feed. Every weapon that touched them was absorbed, making the crystal ships grow larger and brighter. Energy beams became food. Nuclear explosions became snacks. The harder the planet fought, the stronger the Devourers became. We have to stop them, Hannah said. How? Asked Bora. There are thousands of them. Void turned his burning gaze toward the sky. Not thousands. Hundreds. But each one strong enough to consume city-sized areas. What's the plan? Minho asked. Doid leader spawn first? Void explained. Devourers work like hive mind. Kill queen thing. Smaller spawn become confused and weak. Which one is the leader? Kai asked. Hannah closed her eyes and reached out with her enhanced senses. Among all the crystal ships, one felt different. Older, hungrier, more aware. There she said, pointing to a massive ship at the center of the fleet. That one. It's been alive the longest. Then we hunt, Void said simply. Dr. Nair's voice crackled over their communication devices. Hannah, are you really going up there? It's what we trained for, Hannah replied. The quantum stress of dimensional travel through space could kill you. We don't try. The Devourers will kill everyone. I know, but Dr. Nari, Hannah said gently. Thank you for believing in me when no one else would. She turned to the pack. 12 humans and 6 shadow panthers bonded together by impossible genetics and desperate hope. Ready? She asked. They nodded. Void raised his head and roared. The sound echoed across dimensions, calling other shadow panthers from wherever they hid in the spaces. Between stars then, the pack stepped sideways through reality and vanished. They reappeared in the space between the crystal ships, floating. In the vacuum, like ghosts, here between dimensions they could breathe and move as if they were walking on solid ground. The hunt had begun. But as they moved toward the leadership, Hannah realized something terrible. The Devourers had been expecting them. Crystal warriors phased out of the ships. Creatures of living hunger that existed in the same dimensional spaces as the pack. They looked like insects made of sharp glass, with wings that cut through space-time itself. Trap Void growled. Too late to run now, Hannah said, drawing strength from the bond she shared with her pack father. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin in the spaces between stars, where physics meant nothing and willpower meant everything. And in the depths of space, something vast and ancient and hungry smiled with crystal teeth. The battle in the space between dimensions was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Hannah and the pack fought creatures made of living crystal while floating in a place that wasn't quite real and wasn't quite empty. The crystal warriors moved like deadly dancers, their glass wings cutting through space-time itself. When they struck, reality bled strange colors. The sound could shatter a human mind, but the pack was no longer fully human. Minho phased through a crystal. Warriors attack and struck back with claws that existed in multiple dimensions. His panther partner Knight moved beside him, her silver fur rippling with quantum energy. Kai slowed time around himself, making a crystal warrior's movement sluggish while Storm tore through its crystalline body with teeth that could bite through. Folded space, Bora and Claw worked together like a single hunter, anticipating each other's moves in ways that defied normal understanding. But there were so many enemies. We can't fight them all, Day called out as he dodged another crystal warrior's attack. Not trying to fight all, Voight replied, his mental voice calm despite the chaos. Only need to reach Queen's Pawn. The leadership loomed ahead of them, massive, and beautiful and terrible. Its crystal hull pulsed with the life energy of consumed worlds. Hannah could feel the pain of billions of creatures trapped inside, their essence being slowly digested. I can sense the core, she called to the others. It's deep inside, protected by layers of crystal armor. How do we get through? Minho asked. We don't go through, Void said. We go between. The Shadow Panthers began to sing. It was a sound that had no name in any human language. It was the song of hunters who had traveled between stars for millions of years. It was the music of space itself, the harmony that held dimensions together as they sang. Reality around them became fluid. The crystal warriors slowed and stopped, confused by the dimensional shifts. The leadership's defenses wavered as its sensors lost track of the pack. Void commanded. The pack dove toward the leadership, slipping between its crystal armor like water flowing through cracks. They phased through layer after layer of defenses, moving deeper into the heart of the alien vessel inside. They found horror beyond imagination. The ship was alive. Its corridors were made of crystallized life energy, stolen from 1,000 worlds. The walls pulsed with the memories of the consumed, and Hannah could hear the screams of every creature that had been devoured. This way, she said, following a trail of quantum signatures that led toward the ship's core. They fought their way through crystal guardians and energy barriers, each step taking them deeper into the nightmare. The ship itself tried to stop them, sending waves of psychic hunger that attempted to drain their life force. But the pack bonds held strong. When one member weakened, the others shared their strength. When crystal warriors attacked, they fought. As a single organism with 12 human minds and 6 panther souls, finally, they reached the core chamber. What they found there broke Hannah's heart. The Devourer Queen wasn't a monster. She was a creature that had once been beautiful, trapped in crystal armor that fed on her own pain. She had been the first victim of the Devourers, long ago when they were just beginning to learn how to consume other beings. Help me, the queen whispered in a voice like breaking glass. I've been hungry for so long. Hannah stepped forward despite Void's warning growl. What happened to you? You were explorers once, the queen said. We found technology that could convert matter to energy. We thought it would solve all our problems. But the hunger grew stronger with each meal. Soon we couldn't stop eating? You chose this, Bora said angrily. We chose survival, the queen replied. Ow. But survival became hunger. Hunger became madness. We are trapped in crystal shells, forced to consume forever but never satisfied. Hannah felt tears on her face. Is there a way to stop it? Break the crystal, free us from the hunger. Let us die as we once lived. But as Hannah reached toward the queen's crystal prison, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. The other Devourer vessels had discovered their location. Trap closing, Void warned. Must escape now. No, Hannah said. Can't leave her like this. If we stay, we all die. Then we all die fighting. The pack took defensive positions around the core chamber as crystal warriors poured through the entrances. The battle was desperate and brutal. Shadow Panthers and bonded humans fought side by side against impossible odds. Kai fell first. Overwhelmed by crystal shards that cut through his dimensional defenses. Storm died beside him, her silver blood mixing with his red. Day and his partner Shadow held a corridor alone until crystal warriors swarmed them from all sides. One by one, the pack was being destroyed. Hannah Voight called out, his mental voice. Weak from wounds, must go now. Save remaining pack in. I won't leave without finishing this, Hannah replied. She reached the queen's crystal prison and placed her hands on the smooth surface. The hunger tried to consume her immediately, but her pack bonds protected her. Break it, the queen begged. Please. Hannah closed her eyes and reached deep into the quantum forces that flowed through her bonded genetics.
She found the frequency.
That held the crystal together and began to unravel it. The prison cracked. The queen's true form emerged. And she was beautiful. She looked like a creature made of starlight and music, with wings that sparkled like galaxies and eyes that held the wisdom of eons. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she began to sing. Her song spread through the ship, then to the entire Devourer fleet. Every crystal warrior stopped fighting. Every hungry ship stopped consuming. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers remembered what they had been before the hunger consumed them. The Queen's song grew stronger, calling to others of her kind throughout the galaxy. Ancient voices answered from the depths of space, beings who had hidden from the hunger for so long they had almost forgotten their own names. "The feeding ends here," the Queen declared. "My children, remember who you were. Exploration. Remember the beauty of creation." The crystal ships began to crack and crumble as the creatures inside chose freedom over eternal hunger. Some died peacefully, finally allowed to rest. Others transformed back into their original forms, becoming explorers and artists and dreamers once again, but the effort cost the Queen everything. She began to fade like morning mist. "Will they come back?" Hina asked. "Will the hunger return?" "Not from us," the Queen replied. "But there are other hungry things in the dark between stars. Your people must be ready." "How, the same way you defeated us, with bonds that are stronger than hunger, the love that conquers fear?" The Queen looked at Void and the surviving Shadow Panthers. "Ancient Guardians, will you stay with these young hunters? Will you teach them the songs that hold reality together?" "Pack bonds last beyond death," Void replied. "Pantherkin will guard human worlds until stars grow cold." The Queen smiled and dissolved into points of light that drifted away like stars. Returning to the sky, around them, the Devourer ship was falling apart. The pack survivors, Hannah, Void, Minho, Knight, Bora, Claw, and 3 other bonded pairs, phased back through dimensional space toward their homeworld as they appeared. In the Academy courtyard, they found crowds of people waiting. The entire planet had watched the battle through quantum scanners. Seeing the impossible fight in the spaces between reality, Dr. Nari ran to Hannah and hugged her tightly. "You did it."
The crystal ships are all dissolving. The threat is over. But
Hannah knew better. She had seen the darkness between stars, felt the cold spaces where other hungry things waited. The Devourers had been stopped, but they weren't the only danger in the galaxy. "This was just the beginning," she said quietly. Commander Tay approached them with something like respect in his eyes. "What do we do now?" Hannah looked at Void and the other Shadow Panthers. She thought of the Queen's final words about bonds stronger than hunger. "Now we learn," she said. "We train, we prepare, and we make sure that when the next hungry thing comes calling, it finds hunters waiting in the dark." The pack that guarded the spaces between stars had found new members, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Devourer War ended, but Hannah still woke up screaming some nights. In her dreams, she could still feel the Queen's pain and hear the cries of all the consumed worlds. The victory had come at a terrible price, and the weight of it never left her. The Academy had changed completely. What once was a simple military school was now the center of humanity's new defense against cosmic threats. Students came from every human world to learn about dimensional combat and pack bonding. But not everyone could become bonded. Out of thousands who volunteered, only 43 humans had successfully bonded with Shadow Panthers in the months. Since the war, genetic requirements were strict, and the bonding process remained deadly. For every success, 3 volunteers died in the attempt. Hannah stood in the new training facility, watching the latest group of bonded humans practice dimensional phasing. Minho had become an excellent teacher, patient and careful with the newer students. Bora led combat training, teaching them how to fight creatures that existed between realities. "The new recruits are learning fast," Dr. Nari said, joining Hannah at the observation window. "They have to," Hannah replied. "The quantum scanners have detected 17 different anomalies in the past month. Things are moving in the dark spaces, between galaxies." Dr. Nari nodded grimly. The victory over the Devourers had attracted attention from other ancient threats. beings that fed on time itself, entities that consumed entire dimensions, creatures so alien that human minds couldn't properly perceive them. The Terran Council wants to know when you'll be ready to investigate the Void Sector anomalies, Dr. Nari said. Hannah sighed. The Void Sector was a region of space where 3 galaxies met, and something was causing stars to simply vanish. Explode, not collapse, just disappear as if they had never existed. We need more bonded pairs, Hannah said, or shadow panthers. Void says there are survivors scattered across the galaxy, but many are too traumatized to trust humans. Can you blame them? Most of their species was consumed because they tried to help other races. Before Hannah could reply, alarms began ringing throughout the facility, not the harsh war alarms from 6 months ago, but the deeper emergency signal. That meant something was coming through dimensional space. Contact from the Outer Rim defense grid, a voice announced over the speakers. Unknown entities approaching human space through Fold.77 Alpha. Hannah ran to the main command center, where Captain Kwan was coordinating with ships. Throughout the sector, main screen showed sensor readings that made her blood run cold. "What are we looking at?" she asked. "Something new," Captain Kwan replied. "Ships, maybe, but they're not like anything in our databases. They seem to be made of compressed space-time itself." On the screen, Hannah could see strange vessels that looked like twisted knots in reality. They moved without engines, bending space around them in ways that hurt to look at directly. "Are they hostile?" Dr. Nari asked. "Unknown. They're not responding to any communication attempts, but they're heading straight for Earth." Hannah felt Void's presence before she saw him. The great Shadow Panther phased through the wall of the command center, his star-bright eyes focused on the screen. "Timeters," he said, his mental voice heavy with ancient fear. Void has seen their like before, in the deep old times, when Pantherkin first learned to hunt between stars. "What do they want?" Hannah asked. "They consume temporal energy. Past, present, future, all become food for hungry time's spawn.
Where?
They feed, history itself unravels." Captain Kwan turned pale. "Can we fight them?" "Time eaters exist outside normal causality," Void explained. "They attack yesterday to kill today. They destroy tomorrow to prevent resistance. So how do we stop them?" Hannah closed her eyes and reached out with her enhanced senses. She could feel the approaching ships, but there was something else, something familiar. "They're not alone," she said. "There's something following them, something I've felt before." On the screen, new contacts appeared behind the Timeter fleet. Ships that looked like they were built from crystallized music and frozen light. The Maker's Void said in 4. The first time since Hannah had known him, the Great Panther sounded afraid. "Who are the Makers?" Dr. Nari asked. "Ancient ones. Older than Pantherkin. Older than Time Eaters. Older than most galaxies. They build realities like humankin build houses. They have been sleeping in the deep void for millions of cycles." "Are they hostile too?" "Unknown. They care nothing for small life like humankin or pantherkin. But their awakening means great changes come to all reality." The Timitter ships reached the edge of human space and immediately began their attack. But it wasn't like any battle humanity had ever seen. Stars began disappearing. Not just in the present, but retroactively. The light from vanished stars faded from the sky as if they had never existed. Planets that had orbited those stars simply ceased to be, along with everyone who had ever lived on them. Worse, the disappearances were spreading backward through time. Human colonies that had existed for centuries suddenly never existed at all. Space stations blinked out of existence, taking their crews into temporal oblivion. "We have to do something," Captain Kwan said. "Desperately. At this rate, they'll erase Earth's entire history within hours." "Pack must hunt," Void said. But this hunt more dangerous than any before. Time Eaters can unmake hunters before they are born." Hannah gathered the bonded humans in the Academy's main courtyard. All 43 survivors of the bonding process. Along with their Shadow Panther partners, they looked so young, most of them barely out of their teens. "This is different from the Devourers," she told them. "We're not just fighting for our lives, we're fighting for the right to have ever existed." "At all?" How do we hurt something that can erase us from history? Asked June, one of the newer bonded humans. We don't fight them in normal space-time, Hannah explained. We fight them in the quantum foam, in the spaces between moments where causality has no meaning. That sounds incredibly dangerous, said Ray. It is. Some of us won't come back. Some of us might never have existed to begin with. But if we don't try, humanity dies not just now, but in all times, past and future. The pack prepared for a battle that would take place outside of time itself. As they prepared to phase into quantum space, the Maker ships finally reached the battlefield. What happened next defied all understanding. The Makers didn't attack the time eaters. Instead, they began to sing. It was a song older than galaxies. It's a melody that had been playing since the first moments after the universe began. As the Makers sang, reality itself began to crystallize around their ships. The Time Eaters' attacks slowed and stopped. The disappearing stars returned, history reasserted itself, and the temporal wounds in space-time began to heal. The Makers are protecting us? Dr. Nari asked in amazement. Not protecting, Void corrected. Maintaining? Makers care not for individual lives, but they will not allow Time Eaters to unmake their reality constructions. As the pack watched, the ancient war between Makers and Time Eaters resumed after millions of years of silence. Ships that existed outside normal physics clashed in dimensions that human minds could barely comprehend, but something was wrong. Hannah could feel it in her quantum-enhanced senses. The battle is tearing holes in reality, she called out. If it continues, it will damage the structure of space-time itself. What does that mean? Captain Kwan asked. It means the universe could collapse into quantum chaos. Everything that exists, in all times and all dimensions, could be destroyed. Idroid raised his great head and roared, a sound that echoed across dimensional barriers. Other Shadow Panthers answered from across the galaxy, their combined voices, creating harmonics that stabilized local space-time, but it wasn't enough. We have to stop the battle, Hannah said. Both sides. Impossible, Void replied. Makers and Time Eaters have fought since reality was young. Small hunters cannot end ancient war. Maybe small hunters can't, Hannah said. But what about a new kind of hunter? She turned to the other bonded humans. The Devourer Queen said that bonds stronger than hunger could overcome any threat. What if she was right? What if our pack bonds are strong enough to stabilize reality itself? That's insane, Minnow said. We're talking about forces that existed before our galaxy was born. So were the Shadow Panthers, Hannah replied. And they chose to bond with us anyway. She looked up at the battle raging in space above them. Reality was fracturing like broken glass, showing glimpses of other universes where different laws of physics applied. Form the pack circle, she commanded. The bonded humans and Shadow Panthers arranged themselves in a pattern that Void had taught them, configuration that maximized their quantum resonance. As they linked their minds and souls, their combined consciousness expanded beyond normal human understanding. Hannah felt herself becoming something more than human, more than Panther, more than the sum of their parts. She was pack mind, a collective, intelligence that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. With this expanded awareness, she reached out to the warring fleets above them. To the Time Eaters, she sent the memory of what it felt like to belong to something larger than yourself. The joy of pack bonds, the warmth of chosen family, the beauty of moments that were precious because they were temporary to the Makers. She sent the human understanding of growth and change, the knowledge that even perfect creations could be improved, the wisdom that came from accepting loss and choosing to rebuild. For a moment that lasted an eternity, ancient enemies paused in their battle. The Time Eaters felt the weight of all the moments they had consumed, all the histories they had erased. For the first time in millions of years, they experienced regret. The Makers felt the pain of all the realities they had built and abandoned, all the civilizations they had ignored in their pursuit of perfect design. For the first time since their creation, they experienced empathy. Enough, Hannah said, and her voice echoed across time and space. The war ends here. The Time Eater ships began to withdraw, not in defeat but in understanding. They had tasted what it meant to value time rather than consume it. The Maker vessels turned away as well, their ancient song changing from one of rigid control to one of gentle guidance. As the fleets departed, reality settled back into its normal patterns. Quantum fractures healed. The stars returned to their proper positions in space and time. Hannah collapsed to her knees as the pack mind dissolved back into individual consciousness. She felt empty and hollow, like a vessel that had been filled with an ocean and then drained. "It over?" Dr. Neri asked. "For now," Hannah replied. "But there will be other threats. Other ancient things stirring in the dark between galaxies, and we'll be ready for them," Minho said. Hannah smiled and looked around at her pack. Humans and shadow panthers bonded together by choice rather than genetics. Warriors who had learned to fight not just with claws and teeth, but with understanding and compassion. "Yes," she said. "We'll be ready." 6 months later, Hannah stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, representing not just humanity, but all the bonded species that had joined the pack. Other races had begun forming similar bonds with quantum entities, creating new kinds of consciousness that could exist across multiple dimensions. The girl who had been mocked for claiming kinship with panthers was now the voice for a new kind of family that spanned species and realities. "The universe is vast and full of dangers we can't imagine," she told the assembled representatives. "But it's also full of opportunities for connection and growth. We choose to face both with open hearts and united souls." Behind her, Void and the other Shadow Panthers hummed in agreement, their song joining with the voices of humans and aliens who had learned that the strongest bonds were those chosen rather than inherited. The hunt would continue. But now the hunters sang together as they traveled between the stars and in the spaces between dimensions. Ancient things paused in their movements to listen to the new song that was spreading across the galaxy. A song of hope, of unity, of bonds that could bridge any darkness. The girl had spoken of blood ties to a panther, and they had not listened. But when she roared her name across the cosmos, every living thing in the universe heard her call to join the eternal pack that guarded the space's bet.